Hey, what's up, everyone? Matthew and Sina here, stepping in for Mr. Christo. It's been a while since I've been on the live stream, so it's really nice to see all of you here. And I'll be on these live streams, well, hopefully a little bit more frequently. I've just been trying to get my act together because I've been so busy working on other stuff. So it's nice to see you. Let us know where you're tuning in by dropping it in the chat. Yeah, because it's been a while. So if things fall apart here and get a little messed up, it's because I'm pretty rusty running these live streams, and hopefully Jonah will help me out. But today, what we're going to be talking about is how to improve your design by exploring many mediums and different industries. And we have a special guest today, which we'll introduce in a second, but we'll look at some of his work, talk about his career, and then we're going to do a little bit of an overview and tutorial on some of his work, how to create some beautiful 3D typography going through his process. Oh, we got some people from Kuwait, Nigeria, Philippines. Yeah, it's nice to see all of you from Belgium and Dubai.
All
Wow,
over the place.
all over the place, and I love seeing the diversity here. And I know some people are up super late or up super early just to join us, so thank you for joining us. So now I'd actually like to hand it over to our guest to introduce himself, and so we could look at some of his work and figure out who he is.
Yeah,
Hussein,
Hussein.
woo,
Hey
welcome
guys,
to
how
the
you doing?
show.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me. Really
Yeah.
excited to join you and join the whole team. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so for those of our audience who don't know you yet, who are you and what do you do?
So, if you don't know yet, my name is Hussain Almossawi, and I'm a product designer and CGI VFX artist. I run my own studio and Mossawi Studios, and I'll walk you through some of my beginnings, how I started, and how I got to where I am today. So yeah, if you guys want to
Beautiful.
start,
Yeah, let's go. Let's take a look at some of your work.
cool, cool, cool.
And
So
yeah, and as you guys are looking at this stuff, if you have questions, don't forget to drop it in the chat. Jonah will surface it for us if there's anything that comes along. But we will have an opportunity at the very end to dedicate to Q&A.
cool, cool, cool. So yeah, my beginnings, where it all started for me. I always had this passion for design, passion for art, and I came from a very small island in the middle of the other side of the world compared to the U.S. It's called Bahrain, and I always thought of myself as a dream chaser. I had these big dreams. I wanted to work for companies like Nike, Adidas, these big brands that we have, and enjoy buying their products. And that's where the passion really grew for me. So just being in high school, I used to design stuff for fun and trying to find my passion and what I'm really excited about. And it started by doing stuff like this, which was desktop wallpapers, which was pretty popular in the end of the 90s, beginning 2000s.
Hmm.
And this was all for free, like just do it for fun, do it for the joy. And we had like a design crew, people from all around the world, just designing wallpapers, get to know each other, and then we had different crews, like we are competing against other crews, and yeah, no money involved. All the pictures, I think we took lots of pictures which were all copyrighted.
Yeah. No, I think we all started that way. Let us know in the chat if you started here, because I remember some of my first Photoshop work that I did were collages like this for like Final Fantasy backdrops and stuff like that. So I think
Exactly,
a lot of us started here.
exactly, and it's just the passion for. I had a passion for two things, honestly, that led me to my journey, and that was design and sports. So I loved basketball, I loved soccer, and I always just did this stuff for fun when I was in school, middle school, high school. And it's crazy to see, like, you have Tracy McGrady, and I was able to work on a project for him with Adidas. You have LeBron James, I was able to do something for him through Nike. So it's just crazy to see, like, where I started and where that passion took me. And I'll talk a bit more about that journey through this presentation. So yeah, I was still in Bahrain at this time, really passionate about design, wanting to achieve my dreams. So I went to university, did my background in graphic design, and did my master's in industrial design at the University of Illinois and University of Alberta in Canada. And then it was time to start applying to these companies. And I thought, that's it, like, I'm passionate. I thought I had the skills, and I'm gonna get in, whatever it takes. So I applied, and I think I got rejected like I say more than 50 times. All these companies. But the thing is, the dream was never shattered, you know? Like, I always say you should dream big, but if you talk the talk, you should also walk the walk. Just believing in yourself and knowing where your flaws are, your weaknesses, and finding the right mentors and growing yourself. And honestly, that's where it all starts to come to reality.
Yeah, I have a question for you there.
Yeah.
Going back in that time, you just graduated college and you started applying at all these places. Were you self-aware to know that my portfolio is great or it's not great? Or you just, what was your mindset back then? Because I know when I graduated college, I was pretty cocky and very overly confident about my work. And I just kind of like
Yeah,
worked my
100%.
way. Yeah.
I thought I had the best portfolio in the world.
Yeah.
And I think like, I mean, being at that age, I think that it's just more about excitement than being cocky about your work. So
Mhm.
you just love what you do and you dream about the stuff you do at night, you know? So
Mhm.
I think it's just the excitement and the passion that really makes you think that way and be that way. So
So if you got
yeah,
rejected 50 times, what did that do
I was
to
like,
you?
the problems with them, not with me. but yeah, obviously, like I tried to see. I mean, I knew where I stood, and I knew like there were many people that were much better than me, and it was
Mhm.
about seeing their work and trying to be inspired by their work and just knowing what my flaws are and how I can improve. You know, I think that
Mhm.
having the willingness to improve and just knowing that you aren't there yet and you'll never be there, I think
Mhm.
that's a good mindset to have.
Right. All right. Let's move on in your presentation.
So yeah, having that dream, having those failures or those rejections. Fast forward, it landed me my first internship with Nike in 2012. So for me, that was the very beginning that I could get into the industry, and this was like, I think this is one of my biggest accomplishments that I'm proud of, getting into Nike, because it was always a dream.
Yeah,
And
that's
that was
insane.
just the entry. That was the first point. So
Wow.
going to Nike, seeing these buildings, you know, named after Michael Jordan, Pete Sampras, all these great athletes, and just working with amazing people, you feel the innovation and the energy, and it just changed me as a designer, 180 degrees.
Well, how did you make that big gap? Because all I saw was the wallpapers from before, and then you getting rejected, and all of a sudden you're interning at Nike. How did you make that happen?
So it was, yeah, I guess persistence, like applying over and over and over, and not giving up. And like I worked really hard on curating my portfolio, uh, like going beyond of what's expected. I did actually a physical portfolio that looked like a box. You'd open it up, and each project was a booklet. And yeah, I think like the hard work paid off, so it's pretty good. But I know like at that year, I think there was a few thousand people that applied. So
Wow.
just being chosen among like 12 interns, that was just a big honor and something that really helped me with my career and to boost my career.
Mhm. Were they able to identify for you why they chose you over the other 1,000 or so applicants?
Not really, but I sat with a recruiter. I know that they had so many applications, they didn't even see all the applications. That's what I understood.
Mhm.
So I guess, you know, there's a factor of luck, but also there's a factor of presenting yourself and your work in a nice way. So,
Mhm. So
and I think
just
that's something that designers overcome. They don't really focus on the presentation sometimes, even if the work is really nice. But I
Mhm.
think the way you sell the idea is really important.
Do you have photos of that work, that little
I
presentation that
do,
you
I
were
do.
doing?
It's on I've posted it somewhere. I can share it. I
Okay,
don't
yeah, maybe
know.
later we can
Go
dig
ahead.
into it because I'm very curious because I think a lot of our audience looks at big places like this, like Nike and all the great aspirational brands that we want to work with.
Mhm.
And I see this huge gap between where you started and then where you arrived. And this is just an internship. And the more we can unpack that and close that imagination gap, I think the better it is for our audience to see those possibilities for themselves. So
For
maybe
sure.
later in the episode we can dig
Absolutely,
and find
absolutely.
that and
But I'll tell you this:
discuss it.
I went to Bed Bath and Beyond that year, and that was the only year like they had these soap boxes which didn't have their logo on it,
Uh-huh.
and it was perfect. So I took that. I bought 3 boxes. I think I had a lot of soap that year, and just took it out, made it into my portfolio, packaged it like a gift, and you know, you should look
Okay.
at places where it's least expected, I guess.
Okay. All right.
So that was Nike, which opened a lot of doors to me through the internship, and it gave me consultancy opportunities to work on cool basketball, football projects with them. So yeah, that was how I got into Nike. And then moving on to that, I got to join again another sports brand, which I loved and played their game since I was a kid, EA Sports. So I worked on FIFA 15,
Jeez.
and that was in Vancouver, Burnaby, in Canada. So yeah, that was another good milestone for me and another dream that I had. So yeah, mission accomplished there.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
and then the last stop that I'll talk about, or the milestone, is my last job or position that I had, and that was a senior designer with Adidas in New York. And I got to work on cool basketball, football, running projects. And I was senior designer there for 3 years before I left and started my own studio.
Wow. That's
So,
super impressive to go from internship at Nike to working at EA and then to Adidas. Obviously, there's a clear thread there. Like you said, you're very into sports, and obviously, you were very passionate about that. And then you worked on your design skills as your trade going forward. So to be able to hit these milestones, I think is fantastic. And there are tons of questions that I'm sure I already have in my mind, but I also want to give the opportunity to our audience to think about what are some of the questions that you might have for Hussain here. Like, how did he make these transitions? And I think we'll talk about that towards the end
sure.
of the stream. But I know like there's a lot of questions here. Like, how did you do that? Because
Sure.
that's so
And I'll
impressive.
mention one thing, since I know your audience is from all around the world. Like for me, the toughest, I mean, it's really, really tough to get into these companies. But the toughest thing was definitely like my situation not being from the US and that visa situation. And that can really shatter your dreams. So like I did all my homework myself rather than the companies, because there's a lot of talent, if you can't get in because of visa, they'll get somebody else. And that's just a reality you have to face. So there are like other ways or ways around this visa situation that you can do for it to work. And if anybody has any questions specifically, I can definitely help out on that. Cool. So yeah, after Adidas, I started my own studio last year, called it Mossawi Studios, and I'm focused on bringing into my design 3 elements or 3 ingredients, which is every design should be futuristic, modern, and minimal. So that's my language or my aesthetic when I'm designing stuff, and I'll share some examples in a bit. And the whole idea behind my studio is to blur the lines between CGI, visual effects, and product design. As I said, I studied graphic design and I did industrial design, and I always had this passion for 3D art and CGI. So I'm a believer that you can do more than one thing and mix and blur the lines between them. And I think that's where innovation really happens.
Mm-hmm.
And a good example of that is like the Medici family in the 15th century. Mm-hmm. The way they really funded the Renaissance and pushed things was they brought people who were really good at different disciplines, and they brought them together. And you had the Renaissance, which happened in Florence. So that's a good example or way to put it. And then through my studio, I've been privileged and honored to work with some really cool clients. And these are some of the clients. And one thing I'll note here is that people are always asking me, like, how do you get these clients? How do you get these clients? So maybe a quick advice. One is word of mouth. Like if you do a good job, you'll get more good projects and clients. And another thing is that you don't always have to work with the client directly, like I do maybe with half of these, but some of them are like through agencies. So that's also another way you can work through with other clients. So you don't have to directly knock on their door. You can knock on the door of the people who already work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And now moving on to the projects. I don't know if there's any questions so far.
I think not specifically yet. I think people were already asking about the visa thing, but I think we could reserve that towards the end. But yeah, let's just keep going through your work. So I think people will get a better idea of what you do, because we heard some of your story. I think seeing your portfolio is going to help connect the dots.
Sure. So some select projects that I want to talk about. There's about 6 or 7 projects. And my idea is to give you the key takeaways from each project. I don't want to dive deep into each project, but just the key takeaways as a designer. So the first one is in automotive. It's called the N cycle. The N-Cycle was a bike that I co-designed with my friend Marine Miftio, who's the architect. And our intent behind this was, how can we change the way bicycles have looked for the past 100 years? So we changed the shape of it, we changed the way that it's constructed, and the way that it's manufactured. And this got a lot of good hype and good media. And it's been in different trade shows, it's been in different museums around the world, like Design Museum in Ghent, or Modern Design, what's called MODA, Museum of Design in Atlanta, Cube Museum, and so on. So it got us really good hype and good exposure. And it also was featured in different commercials, like this one, for example, for Swisscom. And I think the key takeaway here was that there's two things. The first thing is that this was meant to be a 2-week project between me and my friend, just as a concept for fun. And it became a 2-year project. Wow. And up until this day, like it's been 6 years, we're getting emails about people wanting to buy the bike, or they want to take over the brand because it's just such a nice bike. And the second thing is that, like, this bike reached a prototype phase, but it never was sold, like mass produced. But the thing is that through this conceptual project, we were able to get a lot of more interesting projects and more collaborations. So if a project doesn't become reality, it's not a waste. So you can always get more out of it in other ways.
Wow. So for this project in particular, so you made this concept prototype, and was there only one, or was there a few produced?
We did a few. And so at the moment, they're just going around different museums around the world. So there's like Bike to the Future show that happens in different exhibitions. And yeah, it's just like traveling around the world. I don't even know where our bikes are now. So.
Right. And is this was this self-funded, self-initiated, or did you work with any group to make this happen?
So yeah, it was me and my friend, and I'll give full credit to, there's a company in Italy called NCS Company, and they do lots of prototyping, and they did this bike for, like, each bike cost about 90,000 euros.
Oh my
and
God.
We partnered up with them, and they took care of everything. So amazing people, very professional, and they do stuff for Ferrari and Porsche and those kind of brands.
Holy moly. Holy moly. This is amazing.
So this was a really interesting project for me, and it made me think of how to design something differently. And this was the first project I did after leaving Nike. So I had that innovation fuel inside of me.
Man.
All right.
Okay.
So next project, after the N-Cycle, we did a lot of different collaborations, me and Marine. And this was our latest, which is called Project 411. Sorry. And it's basically a tribute to the Porsche 911 Spider. And we're trying to take that and just give it a fresh new look, and just see what the future of cars can look like. An interesting takeaway from this project and cars in general is that it's two projects coming together. So one is the exterior of the car, and then another thing is the interior of the car. So it's two different beasts, but then the thing is, how do they live together? And like with my experience with footwear and textile and fabrics, I got to bring in some of that into the interior. And then with Marine's experience on the exteriors, we kind of fused them all together.
So this is with the same partner that you did the bike with?
Yes, Marine Miftio. He's an architect from Albania. And we did like 6 or 7 projects so far together. So
wow.
Nice. So
is he part of your studio or just collab?
Collaboration, and he's a very good friend. He also has his own studio. So
wow. So this one, you were approached by Porsche to create this?
No. This was just a case study we did.
A case study. Okay. Another for fun, huh?
For fun, yeah. And it got some good exposure. We did one also for Jaguar in 2011. We were both students during our masters. And also it got a lot of hype, and it went into different magazines and blogs. And then Jaguar wrote us. It also went under Jaguar magazine, on the cover.
Wow.
So yeah, Jaguar wrote us, and we're like, that's it. They want to buy the bike, the car. We're like celebrating. And then they send us like a legal notice, like, guys, you can't use our names. So, but it was good. I mean, I think it got a lot of exposure. And the media, they twist stuff. They're like, this is Jaguar's next car, and
I see. Yeah,
I can't control that one.
Can't control the car rumors, right? No, that's awesome.
So So yeah, that was the XKX, or sorry, the 411. The next project I'll dive into is footwear. Obviously, I've done quite a few footwear with the companies I worked with, Nike and Adidas. And this was a special one for me. It was for James Harden.
Whoop, Rockets
Sorry?
fan over here. Sorry. Just celebrating.
I guess you guys are Lakers fans, so congratulations on that. So yeah, this was a special one. Working with James and personally working with him was pretty nice through Adidas and the team there. And I got to work on the outsole of this shoe.
Mm.
And it was, the reason I like it is because not necessarily the outcome of the design, but the approach. And it was a generative design and taking data and different data points and letting that determine what the final outcome will look like. So each one of these, the size of it is based on pressure points from James' feet. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to have different kinds of traction on different parts of the foot. So just that approach, I feel it's very futuristic, and I feel the future is really moving towards AI and generative design, and you can do some really cool and unexpected stuff with it. So I think definitely that's a good takeaway from this specific project.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting, and it's been like that, I think, for the past at least 20, 30 years that, I've been looking at art and design and seeing more and more of available data, ways to capture different information, whether that be the pressure of this or actual data that's coming in from different entry points, and then using that to fuel the design and make math beautiful, make math visible. I think that's always interesting to me because it's gorgeous when you see it in a final design like that.
Absolutely. And it makes you look more of a scientist, although we're not. Like, some words people like to use, algorithms and data and science, and sure. Packaging. This was a cool project I did for Nike for Kobe Bryant. It was called Fade to Black, and this was something that was the last shoes that were put out for Kobe in honor of his career. And we wanted to mimic nature in a way that we can have these snake scales because he's a black mamba, and then kind of see how we can construct it in a cool way that fades from black to white, and then convert those color explorations, those form explorations into something that can work on packaging. So this resulted into something like this. And the reason I like this is, first, it's for Kobe, so why not like it? And the second reason is just mimicking nature. So when I did my master's in industrial design, my thesis was about biomimicry. So just getting to know why things look the way they are, why they act the way they act in nature, I find it very interesting. And it goes back to the generative design discussion that we had.
Mm-hmm.
So this was for Kobe Bryant. I think this was in 2016, whenever he retired.
That's beautiful. I can see a lot of people are confused right now in the stream, and I think it's just because of the breadth of the work that you're doing. And I know the way that we frame this is all about typography, and we're definitely going to show a tutorial on that at the very end, which you're going to showcase. But I think the cool thing about Hussain's work is just the ability to explore, because we saw at the beginning of the stream somebody who's just playing around in Photoshop making collage wallpapers, and then making this huge leap working through the sports and industrial design industry. And the things that you're doing here really is like taking some of those early design concepts, your design approach, and then taking that to industrial design, which involves a lot of 3D, involves a lot of modeling and considerations like form factor, materials, and all of those things. So I think a lot of people in the chat are confused. They're like, where are we going with this? Because we're talking about typography, and why are we starting here? So I don't know if you could share anything to that point that might help.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point. And to your point, I want to give you some background about my work and my thinking process before we jump into the typography piece. And I think the number one message I want to deliver is that you don't have to be specifically, you don't have to dive into one thing. You don't have to dive into typography, graphic design, product design, industrial design, and so on. I think just having that diversity in your skill set and jumping from one thing to another, at least for me, that's what keeps me inspired and runs my creative juices in me. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like I usually see especially when I was in footwear, like there's the color designer. That's it. All they do is color. There's the footwear designer. There's the material designer. And that's cool to be super specific and an expert in one thing. But as a designer, it's also good to have that diversity and jump from one thing to another. And I personally find it something that's very exciting and not limiting to your abilities. So yeah, that's why I guess I'm showing a diverse portfolio, and it's intentional, just so you guys can see it's not specifically typography.
Right. Yeah. And I think the main thing is we're just looking at the finished product, and it's hard for people to imagine what your role is in all of this stuff, just because, we don't see the sketches, we don't see the process, but ultimately you're doing a lot of the 3D industrial design aspect of this, right? That's where you're really putting most of your efforts into.
Exactly. Yeah. So the CGI, the visual effects, like these toys I'm going to show now, each one has a different story behind it, and it's again, it's just stuff for fun and messing around as a designer. Cool. So this next one, again, it's not typography. Sorry, I'm going to jump into typography. Two more projects, don't worry, just be quick. So this one is something I do on the side for fun. I like to do toy design, and it's cool because every toy has a different message and a different story behind it, and you can just be clever about it and like have fun with it. Like this one, for example, is called "Don't Be Sheep," and it's a bird, but it's a sheep. So just play on words and just having fun with materials, with textures, with lighting, and same with these examples.
How fun.
So yeah, these are just some of and I actually like.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know. I don't see my camera, but
yeah, we can get that.
That's cool. You 3D printed that?
This is a new one I'm doing. So
that's
I do
awesome.
stuff for the fun. I don't make money off this stuff, and it's not like the core work of my studio, but it's stuff that it keeps you refreshed and excited, and it reminds you of why you became a designer in the very first day. So just don't take yourself seriously. Have fun, and yeah, just play around.
Oh, I love that. Making me smile, man. Yeah, I think you're making a lot of people smile in the chat. Half of them are confused, and then the other half are just so inspired. Like, wow, you can explore all of these things. So I'm glad you're sharing that with all of us.
We're gonna get the confused people excited in a bit. So, all right. So just one last project before we get into typography. This is called Project 365, and as a designer, to challenge myself to do new stuff and learn new techniques, I put a challenge to do a new piece, like a visual piece, every single day. And it was looking at like particle systems, looking at cloth, looking at visual language, looking at how materials act in reality, trying to bend the laws of physics, and just having fun on a daily basis and trying to improve my skills. And the interesting thing about this project was that I had these visuals for like a year, and I was just curating them for my Instagram. And then it led me to think about like, okay, how can we do something that's based off like evoking emotion through motion? And that led me to take these 3D stills and create like some 30-second, 40-second motion pieces that can evoke different emotions inside of you. And we have that in industrial design, like sensorial design. So if you see something, how is it going to make you feel? If you hear something, if you smell something, and so on. So I was just having fun with that. And I'm going to just show 2 clips, and then we're going to move on to the typography piece. I don't know if you guys will have the sound, because it's a big part of it. Beautiful. So something made up. It's not in reality, but it would evoke an emotion inside of you. So this one I've called Zen. So it's supposed to be hopefully peaceful. This next one is a fun piece. again, it's going to evoke a different kind of emotion inside of you.
That's
So yeah,
fun.
just having fun, like again, this is stuff I do on the side for my studio. This isn't specifically client work, but just messing around and playing around.
Yeah. So with these things, do these things get you client work? I know you've done a lot of exploration. I'm curious, does that lead to client work or?
Absolutely, absolutely. So half the stuff I already showed are client work, but this stuff, it always gets you client work. So like the stuff you do on Instagram, concept work, and that's the thing. Like you're not just investing in improving your skills, you're also investing in getting new business. And I've had some of the biggest brands see like an Instagram post and some stuff that I don't like sometimes. I'm like, should I post it? Should I not? But you never know. So, like, just as an example, I posted this was like 2013. I posted a soccer ball made out of threads. I just put a Nike swoosh on it, just for fun. And then a few weeks later, Nike contacts me for Flyknit. They're like, "Oh, we're doing something with Flyknit, and that's perfect what you did." And I go, "Cool, sure." So you never know what leads to what. I mean, just be proud of your work and just put it out. You don't know what happens.
I think that's really important because we tend to discount exploration and doing stuff for the sheer joy and fun of it. But I realize, depending on your audience and how much you put yourself out there, especially if you've had previous clients, like you said, people who can give you that word of mouth to the network connection, or maybe people who are just paying attention on the side, or building something like your bike or your Porsche design, where it's starting to get real traction in the niche communities that really appreciate that stuff. Then that surfaces up because the people at those big companies, at Nike, at these car companies, or even at agencies, they're always looking for something new. They're always looking for something fresh. And it's like, that's why they love working with other artists and studios, because they just want to be on the cutting edge. And I can see it all now as a big picture, like why the ethos of your brand, your company, is about future tech and really pushing the edge on there. And I can see how you're exploring that through industrial design and animation, and now into sound and other tactile things. So I think it's quite important that all of us, as designers, as artists, as creatives, have fun and practice in public, right? Because people are watching, and you never know who's going to see it and what that might lead to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to your point, like every studio in the world has mood boards for every project. So if, let's say, Nike puts your work on a mood board, I don't think they want to invest time in recreating that. They'll just get you over to do it. So it never hurts.
Cool.
All right. So now the confused people, we got you. All right. So this was an exploration in 2011, and this was the very beginning when people were exploring with 3D type. I think it was around that time. So I did this thing called Type Fluid, and the whole idea behind this was like, okay, I want to take my passion for graphic design, typography, and I want to mix that 2D world into my passion with 3D, and I want to see what happens. So I did this whole typographic set from A to Z, based on fluid simulations, and I was starting to look at, all right, what does it look like if it explodes? If like I put it in a container and then release it. So the results were pretty exciting, and I guess every letter had its own characteristics, which was part of it was calculated, part of it wasn't. It was a surprise element. And I think this is a very good example to show like how you can mix graphic design and you can mix the world of 3D and bring them together.
Wow, those are great. And just for those people who are wondering, what programs did you use to generate all of these?
So I use 3D Max and Houdini to do my 3D. I render with V-Ray and Redshift. And of course, always, if it's a still image, I edit stuff in Photoshop to do the final touch-ups and the edits.
All right. I totally understood all of that. Maybe some people don't know what half of those things are. So 3D Studio Max is a very popular 3D program. Houdini is a fluid and dynamic simulation program. Redshift and V-Ray, those are 3D rendering programs. So just so it's very clear, those are what those things are.
Cool. And of course, you can use any program. Like people use Cinema 4D, they use Maya, and that's a very good point actually. Like people, I get this question a lot. Like, which program should I use? I don't think it's which program you use. They all do the same stuff, but it's which program are you comfortable with, and which one works better for you. Like, I don't enjoy this program, but I might enjoy this, and it might be different for you, and that's totally fine. There's no right or wrong.
That's right. Preach.
All right, so back to our tutorial. So yeah, in this session or this part, we want to talk about this piece, which was, I guess, the main title of this session.
Mm-hmm.
And it's creating this 3D typography, like a neon light tube in 3D. So the whole idea is how can you take something that's flat and convert it into something that's more exciting like this.
Oh, perfect. Because I know some of our audience right now, they only do 2D design. So hopefully this will bridge the gap and show them what's possible if they're already very skilled in 2D.
Exactly. And the 3D part shouldn't be scary. It's like, it's easy techniques. We're going to skim through it. It's going to be a bit fast forwarded. It's going to be at a faster pace.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to just talk over the techniques and what you need to do for each part.
Great.
So like any project, I started with my inspiration. I looked at different references for lighting, for textures, for the how the tubes look, how lights look, and so on. So it's good to have a mood board just to reference that and kind of check on as you're working on the project.
Yeah, I think with mood boards, it's super important to explore details, right? So you could see what other people have done, like you said, the lighting and texturing, but then even the little details that you see, like how these neon lights are, the fixtures, like where do the tubes and the wires go? Like, because all the details, they make all the difference in the world. I think some people who don't add those extra secondary and tertiary details to their work, that's why it looks so basic. But you could tell clearly from this work and yours that you go the extra mile by adding those extra layers of details, the ultra fine details that maybe no one will see, they do add up. So I just wanted to point that out.
100%. And it's all, as you said, it's all about those layers of detail. So that's what makes every work special.
Mm-hmm.
So I partnered up with a good friend of mine from back home. He has a studio called EJE Studios, and he's a calligrapher. And he does digital calligraphy. And again, my idea here was to take this 2D digital calligraphy and convert it into something that's 3D. So this is some of his works. And he hooked me up with a nice calligraphy piece which was this one. And I guess for this tutorial, the main thing is that it should all be made out of like singular lines. So I think like, what's it called? Calligraphy or scripts. Those are the best things that would work for neon lights. But of course, you can take the technique and apply it to anything.
Mm-hmm. What does that say?
This one says Ramadan Kareem. So it's the month of Ramadan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Happy Ramadan.
Ah, awesome.
Yeah. So the theme behind it was to lighten up. It's, it's a joyful month. People get together, and it's all about community and people having a good time. So
beautiful.
All right. So we'll jump into the first step, and that's about converting your type into paths. And what we want to do now is we want to take any calligraphy piece that we have, any picture that you find online, and we want to start to take it into Illustrator. Mm-hmm. And let me play this. And we want to trace over it. So the key thing here is to always keep your line centered to the calligraphy. So as you can see here, I'm going, trying to keep it in the middle. And a good advice also is to, like, the less points that you use, the smoother your lines are going to look. So, and I had that problem when I first started in design. I used to do like 1 million points, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good, and why doesn't it look good? So the less is more, actually. And I'm sure, Matthew, you have a lot of experience as a designer with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why is because you could see as he's pulling the Bezier points, the handles, like the more points you have, the more tension is being created between the points. So the less you have, actually, the more the math can smooth out the curve between the 2 points. And I know Chris is very much about less is more when it comes to creating beautiful curves, because that's all it is. You have 2 points that are just fighting each other, and the more tension you put on there, the more messy it looks. The less points you have, the cleaner it's going to look.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, that's a super easy step. Just trace your calligraphy or your letterings and save it out as a path. And now next step, we're gonna dive into 3D. And if you guys have any specific questions, because I know this is a bit faster paced, please feel free to ask, and I'll make sure I specifically answer every point of it.
Cool.
All right, so the next part is we're gonna import our path that we created in Illustrator and take it into 3D. And no matter which program you use, it's gonna be the same. I'm gonna create a tube that, I'm gonna create a thickness that goes around my path. And basically what it's doing is it's creating a circle and it's going all the way around the path that we created. So it's making it look like a tube. So based on which calligraphy you have or which typepiece you have, you can determine what's the cool thickness for it. And once you're happy with that, just go in and start to select your points that you created in Illustrator. And again, now it's just a cleaning process. So this is the most important process, and it's also the basic structure of your final design. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing here is I'm pulling points. I'm pulling one in and I'm pulling one out. And the whole idea behind that is that I want to create overlapping, and I want to give it this feeling of depth and feeling of the lines kind of intertwined into each other. So that's all I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm. And you're removing all the overlaps because that's not realistic, right? So you're trying to make it as real as possible. If you were shaping this with a real neon tube, obviously nothing can intersect. So you're removing the intersections.
Exactly, 100%. And it's those layering or that depth that we're giving it that's making it look exciting. And in 3D also, like, you might realize some of your points, like here, they kind of look messy, and it's just about smoothing stuff out and back to the point of less is more, removing some points that you don't need, and just cleaning the whole process up. And finally, what I'm doing here is my idea is I want this neon typographic piece to kind of extend and go through a wall. So at the end, I want it to hang from a wall. So what I'm doing is I'm taking those endpoints and I'm making it face 90 degrees, and I'm just pulling them, extruding them out. So that's all I'm doing here. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much for this step. It takes a bit of time, but it's honestly just about cleaning it up and twisting stuff and rotating stuff and just going in the details. Yeah.
It's very tedious, and I never liked doing this stuff. I always hired somebody else to do it because this part is so tedious to keep it super clean, especially when you're putting it in 3D. And just for those people who are asking, this is in 3D Studio Max. You started in Adobe Illustrator, brought the paths in here, and then you got a circle, and you just wrapped it around this spline that you had to make the tube, and then you started cleaning it up, giving depth so the geometry is not overlapping each other, and then you're extending the ends now so it feels like it's going to plug into a wall or a fixture.
Exactly. And I'm trying intentionally not to use any 3D terms because I know some people don't use 3D and some people use different programs, so I just want to keep it super generic. Mm-hmm. So if you even use 3D Max, I'm intentionally not getting into the specific name of the tool so everybody can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of options. Like Blender is free. You could use that.
For sure. Or even 3D Max, you can get the student edition, which is it's free and it has everything in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
So yeah, that's that for this step. Of course, if there's any questions along the way.
Yeah, I have one. Hussain, you said this is the most important step. Why do you say that?
Because this will be the basis of how things will look at the end. If things don't look clean at this point, no matter how much details you add and how much the level of depth is, it's just not going to look good. So it's key for this to look super clean, super smooth. And then whatever you build on it is just another layer of cleanness and another layer of smoothness.
This might be a dumb question, but can you go back and refine it, or is it set in stone once you finalize this?
No, of course you can always do that. But imagine you're going to see in the next steps when we start to build out the details, if you start to clean stuff back up, like you have to go and clean everything else that you created as well. So it's good to have a good base and a good structure, and then whatever you do is going to you ensure that it's going to be clean. So
Gotcha.
but yeah, that's a good question. Cool. So we'll move on to the next step, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next step is lighting setup and materials. And again, lighting is one of the most important topics in 3D because if you don't have good lighting, you're not going to get good shadows, good highlights. And what I like to use is, instead of complicating stuff, and a lot of people use this, is just something called HDRI maps. And HDRI maps is basically, it's like an image of it's almost like a panoramic image of it can be the outdoors, it can be a studio setup, and it has all your lights set up in that one image. So what you do is you place it in your scene, and it gives your scene, it surrounds it 360 degrees, and then it just lights up your scene very nicely. And what I use here is from a website called Grayscale Gorilla. You can get it from there, you can get it from anywhere else. And there's like different HDRIs, different colors, different moods, different tones, and so on. Just play around with it.
Mm-hmm. So so you started with a HDRI, which is, it looked like you were using studio lighting. And are you adding supplementary lights? Is that what those two yellow boxes are?
Exactly. So what I'm doing now is I've added a light from the top and a light from the bottom, just to give my final piece like an accent or a highlight of blue and purple. So my intent was to create a scene that has those colors in it, like purple, blue, pink. So I think just adding that layer on top, it's also another layer of detail that will make the final outcome look much nicer.
And I know this looks very foreign and alien to a lot of people who haven't done any 3D design before, and I think that's why Hussain is trying to just give a general overview here. But what he's doing is, after he built the type now in 3D, he's just adding lights to the scene, and we haven't seen the final render yet, which we're getting to right now. But he's just, like you would in real life, if you're setting up an object in a studio, you're setting up lights above, below, to the sides, and adding any other fill lights in there so that you can get some depth and shape to the geometry, which we can see here. This is just a grayscale render right now, but you could see where the shadows are hitting.
Exactly. And let me just show you this. So yeah, you can see the purple here, and you can see the blue on the top. And it's just a matter of trial and error at this point. So playing around and seeing what works best for your scene. And then the next step in this part is setting up your glass tube. And because we have the lighting set up, so even if it's 100% see-through, a glass material, and 100% reflection, you can see the HDRI starting to play its effect on the light glass tubes. And that's it basically for this point. I mean, super easy setup. Just to recap, it's an HDRI map, it's some fill lights, and it's setting your calligraphy piece to a glass material. That's basically it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and then the things that you can adjust in the glass material, because you could start with a basic one, but then the things that you would adjust are refractions, right? So like, how does the light pass through it, and then how does it catch those lights, and then that will determine where all those highlights are hitting, or how they're warped or distorted, or what happens when two pieces of glass are on top of each other, right? So you get some really cool effects in there, and those are all the little details that I think make it look real or make it look hyper real and fun.
100%. And this next step is exactly what you said. It's creating another layer of tubes and playing with the refraction. So let's get into that. So yeah, what I'm doing now is to Jonah's point, his question was about why it's important to have a clean piece in the beginning. So as you can see now, I'm duplicating this, my tube that I created, I'm happy with. And I'm starting to create another tube based on the tube that I just created. And for this, I used a plugin called Tyflow. And what's interesting about this is that I can create the tube, but it can look tapered. So the ending of it can be thin, but the start of it can just have be a normal circle. As you can see, I'm doing this step. So it starts wide and it ends thin. And this will go inside of our original tube. And the intent for this is to be less refractive, So it's gonna be a bit frosted. And when I place the light inside of this, I'm gonna do another layer of light or another tube, and I'm gonna place it inside of this one. So there's gonna be a third tube. I don't know if it's getting confusing, but uh, so it's gonna catch the light that is being emitted. I don't know if that was clear or not.
I think it's confusing for a lot of people only because they're unfamiliar with this process. So I know that you're creating another piece of geometry inside, but maybe let's talk a little bit about developing the materials that you have in there, because it looks like you're plugging in a bunch of different numbers and values. And is this something that's clear in your mind? Is this something that you're just playing as you go? Like, how do you arrive at those points where you understand what values to plug into all these different parameters that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, of course, in reality, things will look in a certain way, but the cool thing about 3D is that you can render stuff in live in real time, and you can adjust the material. So let's say I want it to be more reflective, I want it to be more refractive, and as I do that, I can see how things look, and I can see what looks good and what doesn't, as I'm doing here. And I guess it's just using your judgment. You know, there's no right or wrong. So I created 3 layers of tubes in this one. Like the first one is super reflective. The second one is super, it's frosted, it's less refractive. And the third one is just a light material. And I didn't have any knowledge about that, how I can do it. It was more about experimenting and seeing what works best. So yeah. Next step, of course, if there's any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, I think people are just asking about the specs of your machine. Like, I'm assuming it's kind of a beastly machine. Like, what GPU are you running? Graphics card.
So yeah, I use 2 NVIDIA graphic cards for my GPU, a 2070i, and honestly, this video is fast forwarded, so it's not really that fast. But there is render time and stuff render out, and you have to wait for some stuff like 15 or 20 minutes sometimes. So that happens. We just cut those pieces up because we don't want you guys to be looking at something rendering for 20 minutes.
Nobody wants to watch the paint dry. All right.
But for something like this, you don't need a really good, like a really heavy setup. So most things will be fine.
Yeah.
All right. So the 5th step, we have 7 steps, by the way, just so people don't get anxious. The 5th step is creating the details and the hidden gems. So to your point, what you mentioned earlier about the layers of detail and the depth and all the stuff that we add in, the small stuff that people don't really pay attention to. Sorry. So we're starting to do that here. So there's 3 things that I want to add into my typography piece. The first one is adding these rings around my tube, just like clips or something like that, to make it look as if it's holding it in place, and just to give it another layer of realism. So you can see those circles or those rings going around the tube. And then another thing is I want to create these kind of cables or these wires that are attached to my neon lighting. And then they are just hanging from, as if it's like hanging from a wall, and it's giving our neon light some power. So I'm just doing the super basic setup because this is going to be super small and people aren't really going to zoom into these details. So this took me like 2 minutes to make, and just create something that looks acceptable and just scatter that around on your.
So you're drawing the profile of this and then you're lathing it. So it's just taking that shape that you make and then putting it on a lathe, right? So it's making
exactly. So it's just a line, and then a lathe basically is going to turn it 360 degrees. And as you can see here, I'm just like plugging it anywhere. Like there's no realism to anything. Does it work like that in reality? I don't know. It looks cool, so that's all I care about. I'm not manufacturing this for anybody. So I think the main takeaway from this is like composition-wise, see what looks best, what works best, and just use your judgment. You know, there's no right or wrong. Like you can do this in 50 like different ways, and they can all look good. And it's just what comes out with you and what the best results start to look like. So I know when people look at tutorials, they're like, they want to position stuff exactly in the exact place that whoever did the tutorial.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like that. It's all about the technique.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easy for people to follow when they see a tutorial and they're just doing the commands, and through the action they understand. And if they do that 3 times and then build their own version, then they kind of understand the tool better. Whereas like if you're looking at something for the first time, or if you're doing something for the first time, it's very difficult. And you want it more as much as a coloring book as possible, right? It's like, here's the spaces, just let me color this in. And then I think by doing that, you start to understand, oh, this is why it's shaped this way. Oh, this is why I put this number in. Or when I change the value here, this is how it changes the refraction. And so I think that's really important for tutorials, and why people enjoy tutorials that are very straightforward, that they can follow, and they ask questions like this, like, what values specifically did you use? And I know it's like, once you're comfortable with the tools, then you're just really playing. Then you're just having fun. But in the process of learning, you
Absolutely.
want those things.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a good point. I agree, and that's how we all learned, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, what I'm doing here is I'm just putting those cables in and those wires. Again, like, does the wire fall down? Does it go up? Again, like, you just use your judgment and see what looks best for the composition.
Mm-hmm. So now you're just having fun. And I think the term, isn't it called kit bashing, where you just take a bunch of different parts that look technical and they look real, and then you just kind of throw it everywhere, and then it makes it look more real. I think that's called kit bashing.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So step 6 of 7, if we didn't lose anyone, find a render setup. So for this step, it's just going in and honestly just looking at the details, seeing, do your materials look good? Do they not look good? What I did here was I used the particle system, again with TyFlow. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to, again, scatter at different points on top of my typography piece. And what's cool about this technique is that I can take the points that are scattered onto my typography and onto my geometry, and I can start to connect those dots together. So you'll see in a second that those green dots, you can see what it turns into. So, and the point of this is, like, you have this kind of messy cable wires that are hanging on the wall that are just following the shape of your neon lighting. And again, it doesn't have to be like that in real life. You're in the CG world, you're in the 3D world, and you're just having fun with it. And the biggest takeaway from this, again, is another layer of detail. Maybe nobody will ever pay attention to that, but you as the artist, you as the designer, you know your secret ingredients and your recipes. It's like when you go and eat good food at a restaurant, you might think there's like 3 ingredients, but there's like 20 ingredients. But
right.
So
right. Absolutely. And just to clarify for people here, so these extra wires and details you're making, that's just based off of the original spline and geometry that you've already built. So once you have something clean that you've built, you can add a whole bunch of stuff on top and just basically map it to the surface or follow the paths of the things that you've already created. So that's the fun part in 3D. It's like, once you have one thing built, you can just keep adding on top of that very, very easily. And this is similar to when we were looking at the James Harden sole, right? Where you had the data of the pressure points, and then you're creating that crazy webbing for the foot, right? It's kind of similar there, where you have data points already, which is the surface of this geometry that you made, and they're just mapping more stuff on top of that.
Exactly. 100%.
Cool.
Because if you have the geometry, then you can slice stuff up, you can put different materials, you can put different textures, and so on.
Beautiful. All
right, then finally we go to Photoshop, and this is for me where always the magic happens. If you screw up in 3D, Photoshop is the savior. And an important thing is, like, now that we're back into 2D world, people sometimes think that the final render in 3D should be the final outcome, but it's not necessarily like that. So you can take stuff out that doesn't look that good, and most of my stuff doesn't look that good out of 3D, and I take it to Photoshop, I retouch it, I add extra layers of shadows, highlights, lighting. Like, for example, for this one, I think what really enhanced the final image was that I had this flare lighting. which I add as an overlay on top of my image, and it just gives it another layer of coolness, let's say. So I'm going to add it in a second. And then also another thing that I always like to use and I always like to add on top of my 3D renders, and it works most of the time, it's using dust particles.
Mm-hmm.
So just those small particles that can live on your final piece is just going to make it seem much more interesting and much more intricate. So as you can see, this piece exactly. So I'm just overlaying it, and you can get loads of these on the internet even for free. So it's nothing special.
Yeah, I think that's the key. So right now you're really photo compositing. You could do this as video compositing as well. But the idea to make something look more real is just by taking real elements and compositing it on top. So while you have something that's inherently cold and lifeless, like the 3D, because there are so many elements that are real, like these two photos that he just composited on top, as well as the 3D studio lighting that you had earlier and all the details, like all those things add up to the final result, which is the thing that's so impressive that we look at here in the end.
Exactly. And enhancing the lightings, playing with the curves, those kind of adjustments, those are your best friends in Photoshop. So, and yeah, that's a quick overview of a very long tutorial that was fast forwarded, and it's all about the key takeaways. Honestly, like I know some stuff can not be familiar, especially if you're not used to 3D. But it's the takeaways of like creating the tube, creating the different layers, like the 3 tubes that we made, creating the details, the rings around the tube, and so on. So it's just having that mindset and having that approach towards the design that you do that will make something look special, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is really beautiful. It's nice to see the final result, but it's also impressive to see the amount of work that goes into one image. And like we've been talking about the whole stream, the details make the difference, and putting that extra layer is what gets you these beautiful, fantastic results. It's what takes something that's good and turns it into great, right? So this is how you're going to stand out amongst your peers on the internet and really pop on the radar of people who might be looking for this stuff, like the Nikes out there and the other brands that you really want to work with.
Exactly. And just one more thing, talking about like Nike and the big brands. I mean, it's cool to do stuff based off Nike, based off existing brands, and put it out there. So it's just stuff that gets people excited. And if people really like the work and Nike sees that, they can be knocking on your door.
Wow. So just to help people understand, how long did this project take you to do from start to end? Maybe hours or days?
I was kind of on and off on this, but I think I did this maybe in 2 to 3 days, but it was on and off. But I recreated it for this session. It took me a few hours, honestly.
Gotcha. Cool.
But it's not very complex.
All right. Okay. Wow. This is fantastic. I think I really want to open it up to the audience. And people are saying mind blown, amazing job, guys, brilliant, wow, like everybody's very impressed. And I think some people might still be confused, like, dude, what did I just watch? Then other people who are on the edge of their seat just saying, wow, there's possibility. So if you haven't done 3D design before, yes, this can look intimidating, but it's very approachable because there's so many great tutorials out there nowadays. If you just learn how to make the internet your YouTube university, you'll be able to find the answer to anything, and you'll be able to make effects just like this or something that you're dreaming of.
Exactly. And I mean, I get this message almost like multiple times every day on LinkedIn and Instagram. Like, hey man, like, where can I start? How do I learn? I just say youtube.com, like I wish I had YouTube when I was growing up. Everything is there, honestly. Everything.
Okay, so the questions are starting to pop in now. Continue to ask your questions, but I think people want to see your crappy work. Like we've seen all we've seen your highlight reel. We want to see the fail reel, or
a lot of failures.
maybe that initial internship portfolio that you put together. If you do have a photo of that, I'd love for you to bring it up so that we can see, because it's easy to get intimidated by somebody's end result, like where they are now, but they don't realize the 10 or 20 years that you put to actually get to this point. So let's go back in time a little bit and see, like, where were the steps that you took to get to here?
So you want to see the portfolio piece
If
now?
if you have that handy, if you think you know where that's at, otherwise I don't want to spend the
I'm
rest
not
of it.
sure honestly where it's at, but
He hit it on purpose.
but I have it. Actually, that looked good. So we want to talk about the failures, right? So yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, failures aren't stuff that you would put on your portfolio, but they're the stuff that really build you. And I think those are the like whenever you grow as a designer, it's the bad stuff that you did, and you understood why it was bad, and then you improved it. And like I think every designer goes through that phase and through that process, and it's just something to be proud of. Like, and I'm still learning every day. Like as I said in the beginning, the day you think you made this is the day you fail. But like I still have challenges when I'm learning stuff, and I like those challenges. For me, it's exciting because it means there's a process that I'm learning something. And if I'm doing good stuff by just opening any program, that's just being very unrealistic and very silly about that approach. So that's not going to happen. You know, you have to fail and you have to do stuff that sucks, and you'll just grow. So that's the best I can say for that.
So, for those of us who are wanting to learn 3D design and do something like this that you shared with us today, do you have any suggestions or places we can go, resources that we can look into if we're just at the very beginning level and maybe we know how to use Illustrator, but that's it? Where do we
Yeah,
go from here?
I mean, YouTube.com.
But is there any particular channels that I think are
uh,
good for people to look into?
Sure, like on Houdini level, there's some pretty good stuff with the website called Entagma, Entagma. There's a guy called Rohan Dalvi, Rohan, Dalvi, Dalvi. 3D Max, I'm not sure because I learned that very long time ago. And like back then, you know how tutorials were, you had to read stuff and you had to do it.
Yes.
But there's some really cool stuff on YouTube, I'm sure. Same with rendering, with V-Ray, with Redshift. And there's stuff from people you like, stuff you don't like. You know, it's like having any kind of teacher. You like one, you won't like one, and you just stick to whoever you like. And that's the good thing about YouTube. You can just fast forward, you can skip stuff. You're not stuck with one person.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other resources are like a Grayscale Gorilla, um, iDesign.
Exactly.
There's also School of Motion. Our friend over at School of Motion, they have a couple of classes and free resources that are all on getting started in Cinema 4D.
And
Blender
Patreon
Guru.
is a good place as well.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Patreon.
Patreon.
There's some pretty good channels on there, and they're pretty cheap. So
Cool. Okay, I think some people are asking now more industry questions so that we understand the creative aspect of this. I think some people are more asking about the business and the money behind this. If you're comfortable talking about that, like, um, what are rates that people charge for work like this, or what do projects look like? I think there's just a lot of general curiosity because this is beautiful, this is fun. Now, behind the scene, like, what is this? Is this profitable? Whatever you're comfortable with sharing there, I think people are interested in
no, that's
hearing.
a very, very good question. So let me just say this real quick. When I left Adidas was my dream job. You know, like since I was a kid, I was dreaming of Adidas and Nike. And lots of people were like, "Are you serious? You're leaving?" And just running stuff, like being outside the mindset of freelancer and running a studio as a business, it's the potential is just you can't compare it to being a number in a company. You know, like every second I invest, I'm investing in myself, in my name, in my studio's name, and so on. You know, and I have a dream, I have a vision, I'm trying to reach that. So that's one benefit for sure. Financial side, usually when you work with agencies or with clients, it's on a daily rate most of the time. I can tell you the range depending on your skill set. It can be from $500 to $1,200 a day. So like if I'm working on a project for 3 weeks, usually it's like 5 days a week. That's how much? $15,000. If you're doing like $1,000 a day, or if, like some people like Apple, I know they Actually, I shouldn't mention any company names. They forget about Apple, but
those tech companies, the big companies with
yeah,
the
some
deep
companies will
wallets.
pay up to $1,200 a day, so that's possible.
Hmm.
But again, it comes down to the level of the work and what you feel comfortable with. So I know I started at a certain rate, and I've increased that rate as I've been working more and more.
Hmm.
And once it sticks and you see people are responding to it, and you just go with it. I don't know if that answered the question with full transparency.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's helpful for a lot of people to get those actual rates and the difference between working in-house versus a freelancer, right? The two gaps there's, depending on what your responsibilities are, sometimes you can make more as a freelancer if you're constantly working, right? But the trade-off there is you have to hustle all the time and you got to make sure that you're constantly getting booked. So if you can be booked all year long, definitely you're going to be making more money than the in-house person most
Sure,
of the time.
sure. And I'll tell you this, like even with COVID this year, like May really sucked for me. Like work-wise, it was dead for everyone. But even with COVID, I'm still making much more money than I used to make in-house. And on a good year, it's gonna be like, let's say 4 times more than you make with the end company.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you always have the jobs and if you're always working, so financially it's worth it. Freedom-wise, it's worth it. Not dealing with the politics and the egos, it's worth it. Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong, working for big brands, it's amazing. You learn a lot. You connect with amazing people. You network. Learning curve is really high. So I'm all for that. But I'm just saying, on the other side, running your own business, it's
Mm-hmm.
also worth it at some point that you don't get stuck 20 years working for one brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next step from that, going from freelancer to studio owner, business owner, then you have the potential to make even more. And usually those are project rates, right? So, that could be anywhere from like 50,000, 100,000, hundreds of thousands. It just really depends. And the main difference between working in-house to freelance and then owning a studio is you're taking on more risk at every step. So because you're taking on more risk at every step, you're charging more money because you're making a bigger promise of the success of what it is that you're making. So
100.
I want to just give that context for people. And it's like you become more responsible. You have to be more responsible the further you go out, right? If you're working in-house, it's like a lot of decisions are made for you.
Mhm.
But as soon as you go out on your own or you start running a business, then you have to make those critical, heavy decisions. And sometimes they're not fun. Sometimes you have to deal with things like COVID, right? And then the world being disrupted. And then what do you do there as a business owner? And then the mouths you have to feed inside your business. So there's trade-offs left and right. And you have to know what you're comfortable with and be ready to do more if you want to earn more.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool. Um, Man, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, there's some other questions here. How long have you been working as a designer?
So I started. I started when I was in school. I don't know, like uh, I'd say I've been doing professionally, or when I started designing.
How about both? Like when you first started
So
playing in Photoshop.
I was a kid, like I don't know, maybe I was like 11 years old. I was doing websites, like
Jeez.
games websites, and then I moved on to those wallpapers and so on. Photoshop. I don't know it was which version back then. So yeah, very young age. I was very passionate. Family was super supportive, and that they always inspired me and pushed me. So that was really good. Professionally, I'd say when I was in high school, I was doing websites for NBA players like Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, there were a few athletes that I was working with doing websites and some assets for. So that's when it started, and then I was freelancing for like Adidas when I was in college, and and yeah, so let's say from 2008 professionally. So
Okay,
that's
so 12
12.
years now. Fantastic. Oh my gosh. Man, so when you say, yeah, I was making websites for basketball players in high school and then freelancing for Adidas in college, it's like I know a lot of people's ears are perking up like, what? Like, how did you get that? Because I'm still working with the mom and pop clients. I'm still working on Fiverr. Like, how do I make that big jump to the clients I aspire to want to work with
But
versus the
that's
ones
the
that I
thing.
have?
But that's the thing, and maybe it's important to mention, like that stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like I worked with so many of those small clients as well, and I think that's really what pushed me in the beginning. Like the first website that I did, I remember, and I was super excited about it. It was $100. It was for a guy who sold shoes, Shoe Planet. I still remember it. So $100, it's like nothing. So I had those. I had the terrible clients that thought you would design stuff in Paint, not in Photoshop and the other programs. I've been through all that, you know. But the thing is that when you look at somebody's career and you look at their show reel and you look at their website, you see all the you see all the cool stuff and the big names. Like I'm not gonna put any of the small names on my website, but it doesn't mean I didn't go through that process. And I think, as I said, if you have a dream, you know, you put your vision, and if you talk the talk, then you walk the walk, and you have to chase that dream. So if it's Adidas, you go after Adidas. If it's Apple, you go after Apple. And with persistence, I think you'll get there. And one more thing I always tell like young designers is that at the end of the day, it's the people that make up the companies. So and like maybe a big company is lucky to have you instead of you working. So also think about it the other way around. If they don't get you and you deserve to be there, then it's their loss.
I love that. So, because I could still see a lot of people that it's still a big gap in a lot of people's minds. So, Ryan Curell asks, well, how do you get your name out there? I mean, you do great work, but there's so many other options out there. There's so many other people. There's so much competition, especially now today more than ever. Do you have any tips or things that you can share that might help somebody stand out in this noisy world?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's really noisy, especially Instagram isn't helping much. It's good in a way because you can get talent easily, but it's also too much competition. So, I mean, I've personally found it really good just to be active on all platforms, and maybe a platform like LinkedIn. I don't see many designers sharing work there, but recently I've been getting a lot of good traction from LinkedIn and business owners seeing my work. So I think it's finding the places that are a bit less crowded and just targeting those places. And Instagram, you know, it's like thousands of really good designers, and that's the thing. Back then, when I was starting, you'd have like 10 really good designers you'd look up to. Now it's everybody's good. So how do you compete? It's pretty tough. But I guess finding the places where there's least noise
That's a
and
good
doing
tip.
content. Yeah.
That's a good tip. I know a lot of people who are highly utilizing that platform. They're publishing stuff there all the time, daily, sometimes twice a day, and they are getting attention because that is a business network. People are there to do business, and it doesn't matter how large your audience is. What matters is you have the right audience, and you have the right people looking, and you have the right connections. So maybe can you talk to that a little bit? Like, how did you make the connections at places like Nike and Adidas? Like, how did you? Because you say you go after them, but I think for a lot of people it seems so intimidating. Like the wall is so high, and I can't even look around it to know who's on the other side. How might someone make those connections? How does somebody find that back door or the side door in?
So for me with Nike, for example, what really helped me was the internship. And then when I was doing the internship, I was really proactive in terms of setting up meetings with like different creative directors and people with influence in the company, just to share my work, get advice, just grab coffee with them, and that built some good connections with me that stayed until this day. Uh, if you're not talking like if you're not doing an internship somewhere, I guess it's always good to find a mentor because people don't like to get emails and messages that, hey, I have this service. And I get those all the time and I just ignore them because it's more of spam. But I think it's just your approach of like, hey, I love your work. I'd love to see how I can grow and just have a chat with you. I think that will also make the other person feel more special. Like, I don't want anything from you. I just want to learn from you and look up to you. I think just giving them that sense of making it more personal and about them versus about you, I think that's the secret behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I approach all of my um, business development or just relationship development in general. I think too many people are so transactional when it comes to messaging people online. You don't know, like I probably get 10 messages a day of people requesting for me to review their portfolio. It's like, I don't even know you, but you're asking for my most valuable resource, my time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the really wrong approach. Usually I turn those people down or just delete the message because it's like you have developed no rapport. And I think people are discounting the fact that you really have to spend the time to develop relationships with people, find out who works at these places. LinkedIn is the perfect place to figure it out. and then just be genuine and be curious towards those people so that you can develop a connection, not a transactional relationship like give me a job, review my work, how do I get an internship? Because that's the wrong approach, and you're never going to be able to penetrate any company that way.
Exactly. I mean, I get messages on Instagram like people telling me, "Hey, can you do me this?" I don't work for you, man. So the approach is really, really important.
Hmm. Okay, I want to go back to a couple questions here, and I know we probably have a few more minutes on this stream. Winner Pool asks, is it possible to make it from a small country? Can you be hired online if you're outside of the US, or if you do you need to move to get to those big clients?
I mean, I'm a perfect example. I come from a small island country called Bahrain. I think we're the second smallest country in the world. We're one of the smallest. It's a tiny, tiny island, so nobody even knows who we are. uh, yeah, the visa is a hard thing to if you want to work in the U.S. and some companies will have that as a requirement for you to work with them. But it's not impossible. Like I was able to find my way through. Like there's other options for your visa. There's something called the O1 visa, which is if you have like achievements, you can get through and come and work in the States. That's how I came here. Uh, I mean, now with COVID, honestly, this is the best situation that you're in. It's a blessing in disguise that,
Hmm.
like everything is remote. So I'm sure even the positions being posted are remote. And this is your entry. So if they like you and they like your work, this is your best chance. And a third advice is like for example, Adidas, they're based in the US, but they're also based in Germany. Okay, so maybe you can target their German office if the rules are easier, and then you can do a L visa transfer. So
Mm.
there's always ways around it. I mean, if the company is in the US, it's not the end of the world. You can get to the US. If you can't get here, you can go to another country with the same with a branch. So I guess just find your way around it.
Hmm. Love that. You got to trade up, right? So I think some people also go for the big fish right away, but they don't play the trade up game where they're working with either the clients or the offices that are smaller and lower in the food chain, and then working their way up. People want to just go like, oh, it's impossible to get to Nike, but what about all of their hundreds of other offices around the world,
Exactly,
or the
exactly,
agencies that work with them,
exactly.
right? Those are
Yeah,
those are all places that you can work at.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, so there's another question here from Rafael Sandoval. Hussein, is there anything that you can recall from your earliest work, your early professional work, maybe working on websites, that you feel like it was a lesson that you learned then that has stuck with you, or maybe developed your work ethic going through the rest of your career?
It's tough to go back. uh, I mean, there are business lessons like the type of clients you want to work with, you don't want to work with. I think that's good experience wise. And I'm still learning that, it doesn't have to be from the beginning. Like there can be a client that doesn't pay you, for example. Okay, then you learn that I need the right kind of contracts. Uh, Maybe you did a mistake, and we all did these mistakes. Like I once did something for a client and I didn't know anything about confidentiality. This was in the very beginning, and I posted it online like, "Hey, the
Oh
thing."
no.
So yeah, luckily I didn't get into any trouble, but you learn those things along the way. I mean, but one lesson that like stuck with me, uh, I guess this one: be humble and hungry. Like never think of yourself that you made it, and never think of yourself that you're like something really special, and always be hungry for more, and like never settle for where you are. I think that's the best advice I can give.
There's no ceiling. There is no spoon, right? All right, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Let me just do a quick recap of the things that I heard. Why Hussein is so amazing and what he does, because his whole career he's explored and he's gone deep. He's gone from company to company, following his passions, the things that he's truly loved, and he puts that out there publicly. He practices in public, and he lets his passion shows through. And in his work, obviously the details make the difference between good and great. And the more you practice your craft, your skills, and the more you're putting that out there, the more you're going to attract the kind of people that you might want to work with, because clients they're always looking. Agencies, they're always looking for what's new and what's next. So if you're on the cusp, if you're on the top, if you're on the edge of those conversations that are happening in niche spaces, you might bubble up and catch their attention. And then the last couple of things in terms of getting the attention on of people where you want to work, don't be transactional. Try and make a connection. Just be really genuine with people, and don't compete in the busy kiddie pool. Go out in the deep ocean and go where no one else is playing. Go into the white space. So LinkedIn is a place where you can definitely do that. And obviously, Hussain has explored so much in his career, from graphic design all the way up till industrial design. And you can explore it all in even a short career like this and do a lot. So don't get stuck with where you're at. Don't feel like you have to settle with what you have, but aim for higher, aim for more, because there is no ceiling, especially if you know that you can do better, if you know you want more. So I think this is a great place to end. Hussain, for people who want to follow up with you, where's the best place that they can find you?
Instagram, LinkedIn, email me. My email's on my website. So whatever works.
And what's the handle?
MOSSAWI_. That's my Instagram.
Fantastic. We will add that to the show notes if they're not already there. Probably update the title of this too, because I think where we went with this discussion was different than what we had planned. And I'm so glad we did. There's so many great comments in the discussion here. Everybody's so happy where we went, and really, really happy that we get to share this afternoon with you.
It was a pleasure. Yeah.
Explore all of this. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. Everyone, let's just give a big hand to Hussain.
Yeah.
You guys also. Yeah. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you so much.
All right. Jonah, take us out.
Oh, we got the here. Shout out.
Oh yeah, shout out. Oh yeah. Before we end, we have a special shout out actually, because we are participating in Adobe MAX 2020. So if you guys don't know, we've partnered with Adobe MAX, and it's 3 days of luminary speakers, celebrity appearances, musical performances, and there's global collaborative art projects going on, and 350 plus sessions. And the event is next week, and it's friggin' free to register. So it's all online. Register. And Max, the past 2 years have been amazing. Chris is actually going to be one of the speakers there, so don't forget to go check that out. Register. I think it's going to be a fun party online, and going to be an interesting experience for creative people to gather, where previous years it was inaccessible because of cost and location. Now anyone and everyone can attend if you have an internet connection. So yeah. Cool. All right, take us out, Jonah. My bad. All right, thank you all. If you enjoyed this session, leave us a comment, like, and subscribe, and we will see you all on the next one.